Hi, I'm Christy Strum. I've been a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator for over 8 years and I live in Shoreview, Minnesota. I am so happy to be talking about the Many Messages bundle in this video. So you'll find the Many Messages bundle on page 35 of the January to June 2021 mini catalog. I actually, when I pre-ordered this, did not totally understand that this is going to be one stamp. So it turns out though that that's a pretty cool thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in my demo. But also, when you end up making one sentiment for a card, you might as well just make the other 18 and set those aside. So that's where you'll find that. I also wanted to point out really quickly another thing to not miss on page 72. I'm going to use this in one of my samples. The Stitched with Whimsy dies. They're not part of a bundle, so they might be a little bit easy to miss, but they're super cute. All right, so I'm going to talk about the stamp set and dies. So here they are. This is not at full size. It's reduced to be able to fit on there. It says image at 80%. It is a pretty big stamp, and we'll look at that during the demo. And then this is the die. So one thing that has worked really well for me when I am cutting out the sentiments is to line up the heart and 3 stars. When I do that, when I can get those squared up really nicely in the images, I'm able to get a pretty good, consistently well-cut bunch of dies. Of course, when I did that, I wanted to make a variety of different samples. So I ended up cutting out, I don't know, 10 different colors. Well, actually one is white embossed on black. So I ended up, I decorated a couple of paper pumpkin boxes and then made easy, super simple little boxes that I could put in here, and it easily fits 8. They do need to be about 4.5 inches wide because some of the sentiments are really long. So then I made them by colorway. So this is Poppy Parade, Pacific Point, Flirty Flamingo, etc. And then what I like about this, a couple of things. One, I made them 1.5 inches tall so that they would hold them in place inside the box. So if the box gets jostled and stuff, they're not going to jump around too easily. But also I'm able to easily pull them out and put them on my desk and put this box aside when I want to kind of go through and look for a sentiment in that color, or if I'm looking for something specific. So these boxes are not perfect. I am not an expert 3D person, which we'll talk about later too. So that's what I ended up doing, and I ended up having to do a second one because I did have some extra colors, and then, but I'll have room in that second box for more colors as I create them. So I still have a lot of room left in this one. And then one thing I would recommend after you cut out a set is to save the negative. Because you'll be able to use this to see if any of your other sentiments will work with these dies too. You can just stamp anything and, cut it out with the die, even if you're not doing the whole set of the stamps that go with the die. You could use it with other stamp sets as well. And then just for my reference, I ended up making I did one set where I just mounted them and kind of grouped them by type. So these are sort of general, congratulations, birthday, thank yous, just so that I had, if I was looking for something specific, I could see really easily if that was in this particular stamp set. And now we'll move on to the demonstration. For the card that I'm going to walk you through, we're going to make this, where we use the Many Messages stamp set to create the background on this. I wanted to do something that was exclusive to how this stamp works, since it's one big giant stamp. So first we're going to take regular card base, 4.25 by 11, and cut vertically so that it will stand up. So we're just gonna give that a good crease and set it aside for a little bit later. So like I said before, I think it really is helpful to use a Stamparatus for this particular stamp because it is so large and so easy to miss a little piece where you want to restamp it. I'm going to grab this case before I do this and pull in this piece of cardstock and then just kind of line this up. For this one, because the piece, I wanted to do it on the piece as it was already cut for the layer. But because it is so small, I can't really use the magnets. So I'm gonna get it in one go. I juiced up my Versamark ink pad really well so that I could get this all in one go. So we're just gonna ink, apply the Versamark all over. And then just make sure that this is squared up and it's gonna all be under there. Okay, I think that'll work. It's a little off, but it'll be fine because of how big the stamp is. So I found that I like to use a cloth when I'm using my Stamparatus, so that I get a nice smooth motion. If I use my hands, sometimes it'll catch, it'll get a little sticky and move the plate, and I really like it to be as smooth as possible. This happens to be a Norwex countercloth that I just happen to have handy, but it's also a nice size because it's not too big and it's not too small, and I can kind of get a good rub. It was also handy when I spilled some pop the other day. I had a cloth right there to use. So, all right, so there we go. This one turned out just a teensy bit crooked maybe, but that's okay because most of it's going to get covered up. So we'll set aside the Stamparatus and the stamp set. And because this needs to dry just a little bit because of the Versamark, I already have one that is ready to go. So the next thing we're going to do is add this piece of DSP with Stamp and Seal. You can actually see, this will be interesting later, you can actually see the dragonfly that's here that would be easily punched out with our dragonfly punch. I did do that with a yellow one that we'll see in a little bit. Every once in a while, I have to advance the tape runner to get it started again. No biggie, just put a little, oh, I just totally did that upside down, didn't I? Well, fortunately, flipped it over to look at it and then forgot. Fortunately, I have an extra on hand for that too. All right, apply that closer to the top in the middle. And then we'll use the square vellum doily. They do have a right side and a wrong side. The wrong side will feel kind of rough and the top will be smoother. So we're not actually going to glue that down. I'm just going to attach it with ribbon. So I'm going to use some of this awesome new, I know it has a name, 3/8 inch striped ribbon in Blackberry Bliss. And just string it through here, which is always a little harder when you're on camera. Oh, needed to do it from the other side first. Well, it probably didn't matter. I probably could have just flipped it over, huh? It is square. Okay, then you just want enough on the one side that that you can wrap around and tape it. So make sure it's lined up the way I want. Oh, tape runner. Doesn't always like me. I think it's also getting to the end of the roll, so it's getting a little cranky, and I sometimes forget to kind of flick it when I'm done, so that doesn't help either. Take my scissors that are dedicated to ribbon. I tied ribbon on them. This is some old ribbon from a couple years ago to remind me that these are my ribbon scissors, or my snips dedicated to ribbon. All right, so we've got that on there. And then, of course, I'm using one of the sentiments from, oh, actually, it's going to be way easier to attach this to the base if I do it now. I did it after the first time, and That was not the smartest thing I've done. I had already put on my embellishments and everything, so that was a little tricky. Just line that up. And then I put mini dimensionals on this little sentiment. This one works really well because I can get it sort of above and below the ribbon. And then I thought it would look really fun to add a dragonfly, and I just punched this out from the paper, kind of like I was mentioning earlier. Now, in my opinion, dragonflies always must have wing costella, so I'm going to take some wing costella and just kind of give it a good once over so it adds a little bit of shine. I'll see if I can get that to show up in the camera. I don't know if you can see the sort of shimmer to it or not, but I'll probably put a second layer on the wings at least, just to make sure that there's plenty of shine. Make sure I squeeze a little bit too, because I was using it last night. All right. So even if it doesn't show up on camera, I promise it'll show up for the person who receives your card. So. And then I have a hard time not adding embellishments to a card. And in this case, I thought that the new opal rounds would look really, really cool with square vellum doilies, kind of that same you know, sort of slightly opaque look. And right here. All right. And that's all there is to making that card with using the many messages stamp as a background stamp. Finally, I'm going to show you a few other projects that I made with the many messages bundle. I thought it would be really fun to make a box that I could give a friend that has some cards already made that that friend could pop right in the mail. So I decorated a mini paper pumpkin box that we offer in the annual catalog. I am so glad we have things like this because I am not a 3D expert in making boxes and things like that. So I decorated it with the snail mail designer series paper. I thought that would be perfect for this particular project. Made a quick little tag and then enclosed several cards made with the note cards and envelopes, and of course include the envelopes in the box. So I made, for display purposes, I did put sentiments on them, but you could give them to your friend without the sentiments attached, and they can just add whatever makes sense when they need to send a card to someone. So an anniversary, you've got this. Birthday, I did add a little red rhinestone here. Congratulations. Hello. This is perfect paper for this particular sentiment, isn't it? In the box, you'd include a packet of all the sentiments that you die cut out that coordinate with whatever you created. In this case, I used Bermuda Bay. Sentiments, as well as maybe embellishments, and of course dimensionals for them to be able to pop up their sentiments right on there. Might even want to include stamps. Of course, I couldn't just make one. So here's another one that I created with some of our designer series paper and coordinating cards. I'll just run through these. For these, there's a paper in that pack that has circles that you can punch out. So I did that to put behind the sentiments. I thought that would be a nice little highlight for these particular cards. And no, I didn't stop there. I also had to do something with the Flower and Field Designer Series paper that's part of the celebration offering. It's just so pretty. And in this case, I ended up going with embossing white on black paper for a little bit of a different look. The possibilities for this, of course, are endless. We have all kinds of designer series paper that this would be a fantastic project with. And then all you have to do is add the many messages bundle to create a really great set for your friend. So I was going through some cardstock and things, and I found this piece that I had been doing some experimenting with, and I said, gosh, I could just add a sentiment to that. So I did. And also some Artistry Bloom sequins. And it's a happy little birthday card. I almost never case. However, I saw this card on Pinterest by Sarah Levin from theartfulinker.com, and I just had to do it. She did hers with the Granny Apple Green paper from the Oso Ombre. I wanted to try it with a little bit different color, and I used different ribbon and a different sentiment from that same bundle, but I love how this turned out. I love these new black matte dots that are in the new mini catalog. But that was just a stunner that I had to give it a try to. Stays on ink for this. This is the card that I mentioned before where I used the Stitch with Whimsy die, one of the largest die from that set. But I also used one of our new blending brushes to apply Champagne Mist shimmer paint to it. Hopefully that shimmer shows up. It is so pretty. I love that look. But those dies, no matter whether you shimmer them or not, is going to be a great addition to your die collection. This is my version that I came up with for our fun fold for this Demos Galore. I wanted to do something a little different. I hadn't used this designer series paper. This is the well suited for anything, so I decided to go with that and use some of the Garage gears out of the gold and silver foil paper for that. So it's just a version that I made of that card using one of the sentiments. I still use the oval scallop, the larger of the oval punches, but added that particular sentiment from the many messages. And I wanted to use one of these really long strips, so I decided to do something horizontal and be able to add that and have sort of this stripe. It just looks like a nice long card. I used butterflies from the Floating and Fluttering set, as well as this one is punched from the Butterfly Duet punch. Added champagne rhinestones. And finally, this is a version of a overlapping fold card that I made recently using that same, I really love that, thank you for being you, sentiment. So it just has a couple of different layers. One of my friends from our team called it a paper hug, and I can't argue with that. I added some pearls for embellishments because you can see almost all of my cards have also some embellishments. So those are all of my projects. Thank you so much for watching this video.